(1987) brought us Cellar Dweller from director John Carl Buechler, who previously brought us Troll from 1986. In actual fact, the creature from Cellar Dweller is remarkably similar looking to that of the monster in Troll. This movie is also known as Underground Werewolf in some countries and stars Yvonne de Carlo, of course, probably most known for her role as Lily Munster in the TV show The Munsters. You've also got a cameo appearance from genre favourite Jeffrey Combs. So this is a low budget movie made by Empire Pictures, and the story, we start off in a kind of a flashback 30 years prior to the main story starting, and Jeffrey Combs' character is a comic book artist getting inspiration from an occult book, and he's using this occult book as reference for his creative endeavours. But unfortunately, because he is using this book, this actually summons a kind of a demonic creature that actually acts out whatever the artist is drawing on the page happens in real life, and thus ending in tragedy. 30 years later, we have a new artist in the form of Whitney, who hero worshipped Jeffrey Combs' character, and she is now wanting to study at this institute, this artist kind of retreat type thing, and wants to get inspiration from kind of hero. And in this kind of institute, there's a variety of eccentric, different type of artists. And in the cellar is the kind of the workplace of Jeffrey Combs' character, where she once again uses the book to have inspiration for creating horror comics, and thus bringing this demonic creature to life again, causing chaos. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let us discuss. So this is a lower budget movie, obviously from the mid-80s. What can we say that works? Now, I do think the monster itself is quite fun. It's a practically realised man in a suit, and as I say, it does bear a little bit of a resemblance to the kind of the work done in the movie Troll, but nonetheless, it still is a fun design, and they've got like a face that they've got to move, and kind of, so you have a little bit of expression on it. It does look a little bit like a werewolf, hence the alternate title, perhaps. But it's a pretty decent suit, and as well as that, we do get a couple of decent death scenes. One, for example, where he swipes a guy's head clean off and things like that. Some of the death scenes are shown as drawings on these kind of comic panels rather than actually seeing the deaths on screen, which might frustrate some people, but you know, there's a couple in there. It's a relatively lean running time, so it's not a movie that is in any way kind of drawn out. The characters are all very sort of different from one another. This artist community has a kind of cast of different characters with different kind of styles in their art. So you have very distinct sort of characters and things. They don't overburden it with, you know, too much of like a love interest and things like that. There are a couple of relationships, like a rival, a potential love interest, a kind of friend that are hinted at, but it's really kind of like down to business with the kind of the story here. There's lots of kind of memorabilia in the background and things from other kind of like horror movies and things like that, so genre fans will appreciate some of the kind of little Easter eggs, I suppose, that are in this movie. It's nice kind of to see, as I say, Yvonne de Carlo and Jeffrey Combs in this role, and I think the cast do an okay job in what is clearly, obviously, a schlocky B-movie. Now, the story is a little bit nonsensical, but it's kind of still somewhat interesting, it must be said, summoning this demon by creating art, and that obviously you would think, is art imitating life or is life imitating art? And I think that's kind of what this story is kind of going for. Now, let's transition to what does not work. Yeah, the story doesn't really make a lot of sense. I do think there's a kind of a lot of like, don't worry too much about the story or any kind of logic or sense. We just kind of want to get to set pieces with the monsters or girls running around in their underwear and things like that. So yeah, the story's a little bit nonsensical, I have to say. And I gotta say, the creature itself doesn't appear as much as you might think. And it's less of a creature on the loose, more of it appears in inconvenient times and things like that. So the creature itself, I wish we got a little bit more context with it, really. Instead it's really just a kind of like Deus Ex Machina to a degree, and sort of like a plot point really, rather than a creature with any type of personality or idea about its kind of origin or things like that. It's just really there to kind of like show up, kill people, and then kind of disappear again. So, you know, there is that. As I've kind of mentioned, we do get a couple of on-screen deaths, but not everyone. So there's obviously an attempt here to, you know, reduce the budget by getting away with death by having these kind of like showing the kind of the panels of the art, really, rather than anything else. I feel some of the characters are a little bit over the top. Yes, they're distinct because they're so kind of like out there and wacky, but at the same time, I think the characters are written to be just a little bit silly. Like we've got this detective guy who's kind of going around thinking he's like a PI from the 1940s, and he's meant to be kind of sneaking around in this kind of Whitney's like cellar where she's working, and he's got gloves on, but at the same time he's like smoking a cigar and stuff. So it's like, well, you know, not exactly hard to sniff out then, are you? Exactly. So ultimately I think the movie is somewhat unmemorable. It's one of the weaker Empire movies, I've got to say, and considering I think they put out some quite fun low budget science fiction and horror movies, but this wasn't one of the great ones, if I'm honest. In fact, I'd say it's slightly a below average film. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to you next time.